A popular topic among filmmakers right now is anamorphic lenses. All anamorphic lenses really do is stretch the image, add lens flares, but only sometimes, distort the background of the image, and provide an oval bokeh. I think at this point most filmmakers know what an anamorphic lens is and probably even what kind of anamorphic styles they like. However, most anamorphic lenses are well out of filmmakers' reaches, so they resort to methods of faking the anamorphic look. One way people do this is with streak filters. This right here is a clear streak filter, meaning that whatever light I shine through it when I hold it up to a lens will streak that same color light across the entire frame, providing, well, the streak that you typically see in an anamorphic lens. Now, while this is a cool trick and can be pretty useful sometimes, even when you have access to anamorphic lenses, it's not really a great solution and can sometimes muddy up an image, especially if there's a lot of light sources. Now, sometimes filmmakers will also try and distort the sides or background of their image using masking in programs like DaVinci Resolve and in Premiere in order to create that distorted look that anamorphic lenses have, alongside comparing that with a shorter or wider aspect ratio. Now, this does definitely make your film look widescreen format, but doesn't always give it the anamorphic look, and it's sometimes obvious or easy to tell that it's been faked. Luckily, there's a solution to this problem that can turn all of your lenses that you currently have into anamorphic lenses. What I'm talking about is the Sirui 1.25x anamorphic adapter. Now, this anamorphic adapter is pretty cool because it's single focus. There's some other anamorphic adapters out there that are double focus, meaning you have to focus with the actual adapter ring and your lens, which is pretty tricky and means you can't use autofocus whatsoever. Now, you probably shouldn't be using autofocus if you're going to use anamorphic lenses anyway. They're a bit more stylized, meaning that if you're going to go that route, you should probably be pulling focus yourself or have an AC to do it for you. Now, the Sirui anamorphic adapter looks pretty cool from the front, and from the rear, it's a little bit different. You'll notice there's no pinch cap because it's actually screw-on. If I take this off, you'll notice that you can actually screw this on with these threads to the front filter of your camera lens. Now, you might see that as a problem because you're wondering how to align it. Well, this little button right here allows you to press and twist so that you can align this to your camera exactly. Now, like I said before, this lens comes with a 270-degree single focus throw. It has a minimum focal distance of 0.8 meters or roughly 2.6 feet and extends slightly past infinity. Now, that's useful depending on what kind of step-up rings you're using, if any at all, for your lenses. Now, this lens does come with some drawbacks. Like I said before, only focuses as close as 2.6 feet or 0.8 meters, which really isn't that close if you're using a wide-angle lens. Now, this might be a pro or a con depending on who you are, but this doesn't flare up. If you were to take a light and shine it directly like this, it would flare up. But move the light more than a few feet away, and it really won't, unless you're pointing your lens directly into a bright source of light, like the sun, or maybe something like a 2K or 6K, then it probably won't flare up, which allows for pretty controlled flares if that's what you want. But if you're trying to do more subtle flares and kind of go in and out, it's not going to happen for you. You might want to look something like the Moment adapter instead. However, that has its fair amount of drawbacks, so pick and choose. Now, many anamorphic adapters tend to soften up the image when you use them with a softer lens. That's not quite true of this one. This one kind of just takes the characteristics of whatever lens you have and adds on to them. So if you have a soft lens, it's going to make it a little bit softer. If you have a sharp lens, it's going to remain pretty sharp. Now, it gets interesting with vintage lenses. Anamorphic lenses are known for creating distorted or swirly background. If you compare this with a lens such as the Helios 442, you get a very wonderful result with very swirly bokeh in the background. Now, this also does turn your bokeh oval, however, it's not super noticeable. So if you're going for that very obvious anamorphic look, this might not quite do it. It's fairly subtle. However, I think it's enough that most people will realize if they know what they're talking about. Now, for example, this is a Helios 442 that I've modded with a focus gear ring and an EF adapter, as well as a step-up ring in the front for this anamorphic adapter. So if I want to attach this to my Helios, I simply screw off the back cap. Then I can take my lens, set it down like this, pop off the lens cap, and often if my lens is lighter than the adapter, which the adapter is slightly heavier than a Helios, so I'm just going to take it on like this, line up those threads, and screw it on. Now, as soon as I pop this onto my camera, I can take this little red dot on the side and kind of just keep rotating the entire thing, slowly, bit by bit, and you can even do it on your lens, which you should be able to see, until that red dot lines up with the red dot on my Helios right there. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but it simply lines it up so that way you're not squeezing the image at an angle, which might cause some weird distortion, and your pixel aspect ratio won't quite be 1.25. It'll probably be a little less. So if you're looking into getting an anamorphic lens, I suggest trying out this first. At least renting it might be a good idea, because you can take as many lenses as you have, whether it's a vintage lens or a more modern lens, such as this Nikon lens. You can turn it into an anamorphic lens just like that. Now, I have thrown it on many lenses such as this 18-55, that Nikon, this Helios, and recently for a short film, this random 28mm vintage lens, which worked wonderfully. The only major drawback I really see when using an anamorphic adapter is how wide you can really go. You'll probably find it difficult to find a wide angle anamorphic lens anyways, but I found that this adapter caps out at about 24 to 25 millimeters when shooting full frame. If you're shooting APS-C or any kind of crop sensor, maybe a Super 35 on a Sony FX30 for example, you'll probably actually be able to get a little more reach and push it a little closer to a 19 or a 20 millimeter lens. Now, Sirui did not sponsor this, however, I would like to show y'all some footage just so you can get a good grip on what this anamorphic adapter actually does, how does it look, and is it worth the $500 price tag for you?